As you're getting settled in, I want you to know you're watching the TriCast. I'm Steffanie Rivers. Welcome to my journal. It is being TriCast on Facebook Live and YouTube, as well as LinkedIn Live. So come on in. If you're new to the conversation, welcome. And if you are returning, I want to say welcome back. Be sure as we go on through today to like and share and subscribe so that when I post new videos, you will be the first to know. I also love to hear your feedback on the issues that I talk about in the conversation. So feel free to comment. And if I don't, this is live, but if I don't comment right away, it's because you might be on a different format, a platform than what I'm looking at. So today, I want to say again, welcome to the conversation. If you are Black in America, you know there is no safe place where you can hide from systemic racism, whether you live in a metropolitan area or maybe you live in the suburbs, or even if you live in a rural area, even if you have a PhD or no degree. Maybe you feel like you can go jogging and it'll be okay. No, there's no place to hide. If you even want to just be at home eating ice cream in your underwear, there's no place to hide from racism in America, not even if you are trying to sleep and get ready for work the next morning. Legalized genocide is everywhere, and no one probably knows that any better than Mrs. Sarah Collins Rudolph. Miss Sarah Collins Rudolph was sitting in church one September Sunday when a bomb exploded in her church. So not even church is a sacred place. Miss Sarah Collins Rudolph, her sister was killed in that blast. Her sister's name is Addie Mae Collins. And there were 3 other little girls who were killed in that blast. Their names are Cynthia Wellesley, Carol Robertson, and Denise McNair. They're also known as the 4 little girls who were killed in the 16th Street church bombing in Birmingham, Alabama in 1957. Miss Collins Rudolph, she survived it, but she suffered debilitating burns all over her body, and she lost vision in one of her eyes. The state of Alabama, the people who led Birmingham, Alabama at the time, they knew who the suspects were. They knew who was involved in putting that bomb in a church that killed children. It was members of the Ku Klux Klan. And for decades, the city of Birmingham, the state of Alabama, the people in charge of the criminal justice system were racist, and they protected those people for decades. So for decades, Miss Sarah Collins Rudolph and the other family members of the 4 little girls who were killed, they had to just live with it, even though everybody knew who was responsible. The perpetrators were not brought to justice until years later, decades later. And so it took, they finally were convicted, but they were protected by racist people who ran the criminal justice system. I met Miss Collins a few years ago, and as we were preparing to do a movie that's coming out soon, I interviewed her, and so she has continued to live in Birmingham all of this time. She is one of the strongest women that I have ever met, and so recently, the governor of Alabama, her name is Kay Ivey. Miss Kay Ivey issued a formal apology to Mrs. Collins Rudolph. The governor said, quote, This said she apologized for one of the darkest days in Alabama history. That's what the governor said. Even she knows it was an egregious act that happened. But the governor stopped short of endorsing restitution and the request for restitution or reparations, however you want to call it. The governor stopped short of issuing endorsement for restitution for Miss Sarah Collins Rudolph. She issued a 57-year-old long overdue apology, but when it comes to endorsing and promoting restitution and or reparations for Miss Sarah Collins, the governor said she just stopped short of doing that. And so even though this woman, who was, I think, 5 or 7 years old at the time, has lived all her life since she was 5 years old with debilitations that came from the racist acts that were condoned by Ku Klux Klan members in Birmingham, Alabama on that fateful September Sunday. The people in charge of the system still cannot bring themselves to offer, to give, to endorse restitution and reparations for the victim who is still living with that today. Now, of course, the Ku Klux Klan, during the trials that they had to go through, that they later were convicted of the murders, they were upset because of these efforts to stop segregation of the school system in Birmingham and across the Southeast. So that's why they said they did it. But of course, if anybody is owed restitution, that would be Miss Sarah Collins Rudolph. You see, restitution is paid, according to research, restitution is paid by a court when there is a need to repay people for medical bills they've incurred, for counseling. It's paid, reparations are paid when they're due to people who have been victimized by something that has happened in the past, whether it be to them personally or to family members that have kept them from advancing. So restitution and reparations could go, you could say either or. Most courts consider it to be restitution, and especially when someone like Miss Sarah Rudolph, Miss Sarah Collins Rudolph, has been aggrieved the way that she was aggrieved. Here's the thing: if you can imagine the medical bills that had to go to helping her to be restored, to helping her most of her body was burned. You might have seen pictures of her eye patch that she had to have over her eye, and they later tried to restore her vision, but really came to the conclusion that it could not be restored. If you can imagine the hospital bills, if you can imagine the counseling that not sure if she ever got it, but certainly that would have been needed for a little girl, 5 years old, to go to church thinking she was going to sit in Sunday school with her family and her friends, and for her sister to never come home again, as well as other friends and family to never come home again, being made whole. So you might say, why is it that Black people always are talking about restitution and reparations? Why is it that they feel they are owed? Well, here's the thing. If you look at the history of America, the history of the federal government, they've paid restitution to so many individuals and groups of people who have been aggrieved by the system. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go do an aside. As a matter of fact, I went to the Grand Canyon this past weekend and I took a boat, a whitewater rafting tour that was run by some Native Americans that lived on the reservation. They ran the tour. This is how they get money to fund what they need on the reservation. And one of the tour guides is a Native American, and I asked him, about the process for getting federal funds for their reservation and for their tribal affiliation. So he talked to me about how they do have money set aside for Native Americans. So Native Americans get money. You've got people who were harmed in concentration camps who get money. You've got lots of different organizations and people who have been aggrieved by the system who get money. And if you want more recent examples, how about the victims of 9/11? The victims and their family members who were killed in 9/11 and survived 9/11, they got a settlement from the government. Let's talk about the Boston Marathon victims. Their survivors and the family members of those killed got a settlement. Just last week, the shooting victims of the Las Vegas shooting at the Mandalay Bay Casino and Resort that happened a few years ago, they were just awarded by a judge. I think it was $800 million. Okay. And so if they deserve restitution, then surely someone like Miss Sarah Collins Rudolph deserves restitution. Because especially when you look at the legalized genocide that happened, there's no place to hide. But certainly when you look at the history of the state of Alabama, when you look at the former governor, George Wallace, who stood on the courthouse steps and said, segregation today, segregation forever. When you look at the leaders of a state who will stand before the masses and promote segregation and racism, and then in turn, racist acts kill children and maim survivors. Certainly, if anyone deserves restitution, it would be Miss Sarah Collins Rudolph. And so I made me some notes because sometimes I forget what it is that I want to say. So I want to say to the governor, Miss Kay Ivey, the governor of Alabama, that although everybody wants to, wants to be apologized to when they have been aggrieved, stop apologizing if you're not willing to put your money where your mouth is. I remember in elementary school, and you might remember in elementary school, we used to say, sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. So if it was just nigger this and nigger that, I'm pretty sure that we would have survived it because people still say that. But when you put water hose on us, when you use billy clubs on us, when you shoot us down, when you put knees on our necks and it kills us, sticks and stones will break our bones, but words will never hurt us. So we want instead of apologies, we want you to write the check, Governor, all the governors. We want you to write the check. And speaking of writing checks, the USA Today newspaper, the sports department, recently did research, and they found that although it's good symbolism for the sports the owners of these professional sports teams to allow the team members, their players, to kneel during the national anthem. And although it's good optics for the owners of these teams to allow peaceful protests from the pro ballers, what's more important, what you can tell that's important about a man is that you can tell what's important to a man based on where he spends his time and where he spends his money. I know that's important to me. I hate wasting time and I hate wasting money. So if you look at the owners of these professional sports teams, the USA Today has found that these owners have given more than $14.6 million to members of Congress who are running for office. In 2019 and so far in 2020, team owners have donated more than $14.6 million to members of Congress. 85% of that money has gone to members of the Republican Party, as well as about $3 million has gone to political action committees that are aligned with things that President Donald Trump touts in his many speeches and rallies that he has gone to. So I want to give you some examples of some of the things. Of course, we know what Donald Trump is about, but essentially, as I was saying, $3.7 million has gone to PACs that are aligned with Donald Trump. So the optics of allowing players to kneel and the optics of allowing players to peacefully protest, it looks good. But owners, what are you doing with your money? What are you doing with your time? In addition to 83% of that $14 million going to the Republican Party, that would be 24%. Not good in math, but I can count a little bit. 24% of those millions went to the Democratic Party. And that's the same Democratic Party that Joe Biden is leading and is vying to be the next president of the United States. This is the same Joe Biden whose 1994 crime bill put bully, liar, killer cops on the street that we still are seeing to this day are affecting us and are part of this legalized genocide of Black people in America. So some of those donations went to the Democratic Party, but 86% of the 14 million went to the Republican Party. 3 million of that went to PACs that aligned with Donald Trump. So, of course, it's a person's right to do with their money, give their money to who they want to give it to, spend it where they want to spend it. But when you say, on one hand, I think Black Lives Matter, and I want to show that by allowing players to peacefully protest, but then you give $16 million, I think it is, $14.6 million to Republican conservatives, and a portion of that money goes to political PACs that directly are in opposition. Their ideology is in direct opposition to Black Lives Matter. What does that really say? So I just want you to be honest about how it is you really feel. I mean, if you're going to put millions of dollars behind it, then we want you to be honest about it. Now, of course, when it comes to Donald Trump, we know what he's about. He says that he wants a strong military presence, but he only paid $750 in personal income tax for 2 years since he's $750 a year for 2 years. So $1,500 that he has paid it for 2 years of him being president in personal income taxes. So he's not paying for the military. We're paying for the military. He's not paying his fair share. He says he wants kids to go back to school because it's the right thing to do. But he doesn't pay attention to scientists who went to school. He doesn't pay attention to the Centers for Disease Control scientists and experts when they try to tell us how is the best way for us to attack and to get rid of coronavirus while we're trying to fight in the middle of this pandemic. He doesn't pay attention to that. He doesn't want to pay taxes, but he paid hush money to a porn star so that we wouldn't know that he slept around on his pregnant wife. So when it comes to knowing what Donald Trump cares about, he cares about greed and sex, basically. So Donald Trump says he does not support Black Lives Matter. Donald Trump has put in place legislation that has depleted or that has cut back a lot of the Environmental Protection Agency legislation that supports clean water and clean air. He has cut out a lot of and is in the middle of basically destroying Obamacare, the Affordable Health Care Act that helps people with pre-existing conditions. And especially now when we're in the middle of a pandemic, a lot of people going forward are going to have pre-existing conditions. Of course, Donald Trump keeps saying that he has something that's so much better, that's greater, that's going to save everybody a lot of money. But 3.5 years in, he has yet to reveal what that is. Chances are because he doesn't have anything that is better. So when you look at what a person cares about, look at where they spend their time. He spends his time with porn stars. And look at where they spend their money. These so-called people who care about equal opportunity and they care about justice and a fair criminal justice system, they spend their money with people who vote against things like a fair and equitable criminal justice system. So that's what is most important, is not what people say, it's what people do. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to, quit taking lip service from people. Go to, if you have ever been in a situation where you or a family member, whether it's recent or in the past, has been in a situation where your civil rights might have been violated, I say go to the local government, your state government, and look to see if you or your family members could possibly file for restitution from your local government or your state government if your civil rights have been violated. We, in addition to continuing to fight for reparations for ADOS, African descendants of slaves, from the federal government, we also have the option to look for restitution for ourselves and our family members that we might be eligible for from the local government. So don't pass up this opportunity. In fact, put that on your things to do list. So by the end of October, you will have filed any restitution that might be filed for any restitution that could be coming your way. Because if they're paying out money to 911, 9/11 victims. And that's, rightfully so. I'm not saying they don't deserve the money. I'm saying if they deserve the money, if Boston Marathon victims deserve the money, if the Las Vegas shooting victims deserve the money, then surely Sarah Collins Rudolph in Birmingham, Alabama deserves the money. Surely ADOS, African descendants of slaves, deserve the money. So we, since they're handing out money, give us our money. How about that? So if you haven't already, like, share, and subscribe, because I try to bring to you information that's useful and helpful in your everyday life, as well as if you know anyone who needs to hear this, go ahead and share it and subscribe. And I normally post on Sundays, but again, that's what video is for, recorded video is for. If you're unable to be here live and you want to hear more, go ahead and subscribe so whenever you get a chance, you can look at it. To find out more about the things that I care about, you can go to the written version of my journal. That's at eurweb.com. Thanks, and have a super day.